you could potentially have a $10 million capital gain exclusion on your gain. So for example, if your 50K turned into 9.2 million, you literally pay zero taxes on that. It's one of the best tax breaks that exists. If you properly invest into a C Corp startup that's under $50 million, your gain could be 100% tax-free.
Welcome to episode number 5 of Tech Careers and Money Talk. I'm your host, Christopher Nelson. I've been in the technology industry for 20 plus years. And after climbing my way to the C-suite, working for 3 companies that have been through IPO and investing my way to financial independence, I'm here to share with you everything that I've learned and introduce you to people that can help you along the way. And today I'm excited to introduce you to Greg O'Brien and John Malone of Anomaly CPA, because they can help so many technology employees tremendously and people like them. They are certified tax planners. Certified tax planners are not your average CPA. They are a specific breed. They've gone through a certification program that focuses them on a way to actually look at the tax code. And the tax code is something that shows them the way so that you can pay less taxes. I'm telling you, the way that they think opens up your mind to a lot of possibilities about how this can help you build a financial fortress for you and your family. So let's get into the episode. Let's talk right now. Let's get back into it. Technology employees, the ones who I know, many of them have a lot of holdings in stocks, single stocks. They also have maybe some venture investment, but that's their exposure. And the complaint that I heard, and is complaining all the time, is this is the time of year, right, in April, where everyone is just crying, going, why are my tax bills so high? Why we have you on the phone. And again, I'm glad that we have, Greg, the strategist. We got John, the lawyer. This is not advice. We're just talking about some strategies here. Why don't you share with people today, like when you're thinking about this type of scenario, what are strategies that are available today for people to lower their tax burden?
Yeah, let me just start off with the first thing, Christopher. I mean, we see, and we've seen a lot of people that, especially in the tech world, they have RSUs or they have different kind of bonus compensation plans. There's often a surprise, right, come April, because they have a large balance due, right? So the tax that you owe in, say, April, right, that is just a true up of what happened. Now,
right,
people will sometimes say, I don't understand because Google, whoever I work for, they're withholding taxes. The issue is, and this is kind of a epidemic among tech employees, is that when they receive RSUs or they receive these supplemental wages, commissions, bonuses, the companies take a position, which they legally can do under the tax code, to withhold at what's called a supplemental rate. So if you're under $1 million, they're going to withhold at 22%. If you're over $1 million, it's going to be 37%. Let's say, for example, your actual tax rate is 32%, but they withhold at 22% on $100,000. That is a large delta right there, right?
Yes.
You psychologically probably don't see that. When the bonus comes in December, you're all excited. I got all this money in my bank account. You may not reconcile that they actually under withheld by 10 to 12%.
Right.
And you don't figure that out until April. So that's the first thing. We always do recommend people check with their HR to make sure that, hey, my CPA said my effective rate is 32.5%. I want to increase my withholdings here so I don't get slammed come April, right? That's not saving you money. That's just helping you avoid the surprise. Now,
Right.
as far as the saving strategy go, right? So let's just have to go through a couple basic concepts first. W-2 income is what's considered active income, right? It's
Right.
ordinary income and subject to both income tax, but also FICA and Medicare tax, right? So in your W-2, you're going to have Medicare tax, Social Security tax up to the wage base, taken out of every paycheck, plus whatever you choose to withhold for income tax. That is the most difficult income to offset in the tax code, right? For a reason. The W-2 employees pay the most taxes in the country for the most part. It's not easy to offset those. You need what's called a non-passive loss to offset those.
Right.
So the typical person that's just investing, say, in a syndication, that loss may not offset that W-2.
Right.
We're going to show you how to do that in a minute, but that's just kind of the baseline, right? There's active income, and then there's also this concept called passive income. There's also, confusing here, what's called portfolio income. Portfolio income is what you talk about with stocks,
Right.
dividends, capital gains, interest on banks. Don't confuse portfolio income with passive income. Passive income might be a syndication, right? Limited partner interest in a business, right? So there's all these different technical terms here that can be overwhelming to people. With tech employees, especially, right? We see people oftentimes say, hey, and this is the same that goes for other professions like doctors, for example. They have
Mm.
very, very high W2 income and they feel stuck. The first thing, right? I think if you are doing Chris, you mentioned venture investing, right? So
That's right.
if you have the cash flow and you're investing in, hey, I get these startup deals that I'm investing in, I'm taking the swing at this AI company or this cool
Right.
tech company. You should be very educated on the long term benefits of that. There's something out there called Section 1202. We'll call it 1202 stock or QSBS stock. Some people in
Hmm.
Silicon Valley may have heard of this, but if you're investing even 50K, say, into a startup, you should always ask that startup, are you qualified for 1202 stock? What that means is that if that company hits, you could potentially have a $10 million capital gain exclusion on your gain. So for example, if your 50K turned into 9.2 million, you literally pay zero taxes on that. It's one of the best tax breaks that exists. They've tried to reverse it several times, but the powers that be and lobbyists have kept it around. Some people think that, oh, I have to start the startup to get that benefit. Not true. There are rules to follow, but if you properly invest into a C Corp startup that's under $50 million, your gain could be 100% tax free. There's
Wow.
also ways to multiply that benefit, right? We've had people that have gotten 40, $50 million tax free. So that's number one, right? That's not going to save you in the short term, but you could have a
Right.
huge windfall in the long term.
And that is probably the most powerful tax code section as it relates to
Mm.
the tech startup world, right? I mean,
Right.
1202 QSBS stock is kind of the gold standard for
Right.
tax strategy, right? There's nothing else that you're going to get a $10 million exclusion per
I
shareholder.
know. I know that number is just, and I've heard about that before. And the one thing I also want to tease out, and I also want to go back to what Greg you were talking about, RSUs, tech employees, all of this. What is clear to me is that the advantage is when you understand what you're trying to do up front, you get educated on all the pieces, and you understand how it works together. Because I know plenty of people that have, in this secondary use case, that have invested in venture that I don't believe have asked that question. I don't think that they're thinking about wait, is this a LLC? Is this a C Corp? Can you
Mhm.
offer this? I'm going to do 250, 500K. Like, this would be worth my investment for you to make that change.
Totally, because I think you need to, when you're making an investment, right, you need to look at the after-tax returns.
Mm,
Obviously, venture investing is inherently more risky, but the returns are greater. And then if you can also say, hey, I'm not going to pay that 23.8% capital gains on top of it, that's pretty nice, right?
yeah.
So it can also be a negotiation tactic we've seen for people that are kind of being, early founders of or co-founders of startups.
And I don't say that. I mean, Christopher, it's a great point. I think that our savviest clients, and whether they're investors, founders, whatever, like they are in this world, they are ensuring that their investment or that their company that they're starting is 1202 eligible, right? Like that is like first box to check, has to be done, and it goes to your point of just knowing the outcome, and planning for that right before, because once you do something to jeopardize 1202, you can taint the pool for everybody, right? So like that's something that there needs to be clear guidelines, and there's probably going to be some unhappy people if you do that, right? So that's a kind of a planning technique where it's we're talking about a couple of at the high level, they look like pretty simple things, but there's
Right.
layers to them, and it's more of just ensuring that you're abiding by those rules throughout the life of the company through exit.
Well, hey, thanks so much. I really appreciate it, fellas. And I think you added a ton of value today. So thanks so much.
Thanks for having us, Chris. For a great time.